I am Leanne Duggar, here today to summarize Chapter 7 for you, Multi-Channel Television Services. Please follow along with me on the PowerPoint slides as I explain this chapter. Let's begin on slide number 2. Here on slide 2, I give you a brief outline of Chapter 7 presentation I'll be giving you. The first topic will be discussing a brief historical, regulatory, and technological context of the multi-channel television industry. Then we'll move on to highlighting a few multi-channel television distributors and consumers that are involved with the industry. And finally, we'll end up discussing the major points that are trending today that are affecting the multi-channel television industry. Let's move on to slide 3 of Chapter 7. Here I've identified several objectives I want you to get from this presentation. First, I want you to be able to identify the 4 methods of television reception for the consumers. Next, I want you to be able to identify the multi-channel programming distributors, then identify the multi-channel video programming distributor consumer activity that's going on, and lastly, identify the multi-channel industry trends that are occurring. Slide 4, here's a brief history of some regulations involving the multi-channel television industry that Chapter 7 discusses. It kind of first opens up with, in the 1990s, consumers had a few choices of getting the multi-channel choices that they wanted. So their only main option was local cable television. And the cable industry ended up having a monopoly on the multi-channel services during the 80s and the 90s. But then the market expanded with satellite television when DirecTV launched its broadcasting service in 1994, and Dish followed along soon after in 1996. Things were going pretty good for the consumers during this time for choices of way to watch multi-channel television. The market industry expanded even more with television companies like Verizon opening up their fiber optics telephone lines to the consumers, and Uverse went ahead and launched in 2006 as a viable option for consumers to choose from. In the mid-2000s, also the distribution market for the multi-channel television industry became very competitive with an explosion in the market from the internet. This allowed the television to be watched using a method called over-the-top programming services, or OTT. This is very important, what's trending today with the millennial genre consumer. In 2013, the FCC indicated that in the consumer household, 35% of the homes were able to subscribe to 4 of the MVPD distribution television options. Well, just 2 years later, in 2015, 99% of the U.S. households were able to have a choice of 3 of the 4 competing MVPD services available. Very advanced technologically at this time. Let's move on to slide 5. Here we're going to show you how to identify the four methods of multi-channel TV services that are available to the U.S. consumers. First is the cable television systems. It's the most popular way for consumers to get their multi-channel television services. Number two is the satellite. You have DirecTV and Dish. Then you have your telephone fiber optic service. And lastly, the most popular trending type of service is using the internet or OTT or over-the-top or skinny streaming television services. Let's go on to slide number 6. Here we're going to be able to identify the MPV multi-channel programming distributors. For cable, an example is your Spectrum, Comcast, Charter, and Cox television services. An example of your satellite distributors, you have DirecTV and Dish. Your telephone industry, AT&T's Uverse, AT&T's Fiber Optics, and Verizon, Fios, F-I-O-S, television services. And lastly, the internet, OTT, or streaming services. You have Netflix, Sling TV, Hulu, YouTube Live as a distributor. Let's go on to slide number 7. The multi-channel television cable TV method. This is your traditional first major change with the cable industry that extended the local stations reach. The first non-commercial community antenna, or your CAT-TV, CATV service, was established in the 1950s. It helped distribute the context through a coaxial cable to multiple users. And today it's still one of the most popular ways to provide your MVPD method. Again, current examples are Spectrum, Charter, Cox. Let's go on to slide number 8. The multi-channel satellite TV method. In 1972, the FCC opened the Open Skies policy, which allowed qualified companies to launch and operate domestic satellites to distribute content to subscribers or consumers. DirecTV and Dish are the really two satellite services for multi-channel open to the U.S. Let's go on to slide number 9. The multi-channel television services industry for the telephone through line wire. The Telecommunications Act of 1966 directed the preference for competition over regulations in the United States. The federal regulators opened the door for telephone companies to enter the television multi-channel distribution market. This was a viable option for the consumers. Let's go on to slide number 10. Now we're getting into what's called the optional internet multi-channel video production company, or short name for it would be OTT Virtual Multi-Channel Video Programming Distributor, or VMPVDB. The cord-cutting and virtual MVPD internet services is a subscription television market in the U.S. In the 1910s, when having a subscription to Spectrum or Comcast began to die off with millennial industry. They looked for using the internet to stream their television channels. This became very popular. The over-the-top video on demand services such as Netflix was very appealing to these changing habits, and growth in the mobile phone industry helped launch the internet as a viable tool to watch your multi-channels. The market trend of the cord cutters is a term that TV providers that stream media such as a standalone product directly to the viewers over the internet, bypassing the cable, satellite, and telephone methods. The traditional multi-channel television and broadcast television becomes obsolete to the cord cutting millennial industry. The OTT is a paid subscription-based video on demand service. It offers access to your film and television through the content carriers like Amazon Video, Hulu, Netflix, Now TV, Sling TV, Go, Sky Go television services. The people that use the cord cutting OTT services are the millennial consumers, and they have access to streaming linear specialty channels that are similar to your satellite and fiber optic services, but they're streamed over the internet. Let's go on to slide number 11, where we can look at the traditional multi-channel programming distributor consumer activity that's going on in 2016 to 2017 in Chapter 7. The industry for consumer activities was going down in the number of subscribers during 2016 and 2017 due to the growth of the cud-cording millennial generation. The cable operators lost 2% of their subscribers. The satellite providers, which had 34% of the market, they lost 5% of their customer base. And then the telephone industry, which only had 11% of the market, unfortunately lost 8% of their subscribers. Let's go on to slide number 12, continuing on with the consumer activity that was highlighted in 2016 and 2017. What's on the uptrend is the virtual MPVD multi-channel television services. This is also known as skinny TV, OTT TV, VMVPD. Their services are provided by Hulu, Sling TV, and DirecTV Now. They have an increased subscribership in 2017, but with more than 1,500,000 consumer users. The chapter identified that for future consumer activities that's going to be happening and what's going on today is, they say it's unclear whether the cord cutting phenomenon will continue to change or stabilize. Let's go on to slide number 13. With the MVP industry trends with the distributors, there's an increase in the types of virtual multi-channel programming distributors They need to expand, and those who provide the over-the-top streaming services, the internet is a great option for those who want on-demand and live programming through a website and mobile apps that are tied to their user account. Let's go on to slide number 14, the multi-channel industry trends for employment opportunities. Those who have technical skills, there's a growing demand for the engineers and computer programmers that are working across lots of the distribution methods. Also, your system securities and your cloud computing services need engineers that can keep up with demand today. Also, business skills are needed. There's employment opportunities for entry-level people that includes management, marketing, public relations, business analysis, and audience measurement analysis. Let's go on to slide number 15. I'm going to leave you with this question I want you to answer on the discussion board for Chapter 7. Will the OTT, or over-the-top cord-cutting customers, eventually stop dropping the traditional subscription services or begin to resubscribe to the multi